make sure you hit subscribe. It's right over there, I swear. Or maybe it's there. It's one of them. It's a button. It's red. Click it. You're in Oxnard, by the way, so you're in a very nice hotel room in Oxnard, the home of some of the best strawberries in the country. I don't know if you know that. So the other day, Jerry was kind of freewheeling at the mic and kind of offended people, and then McCarthy got all ticked off when people talked about his job security. So one of the things I love when you go to camp, you get a sense of sort of the vibe there. So what is the vibe? Last year, Dak got hurt, I remember, in camp, and it was just an uneven camp. The way the season ended with the clock and Dak, the expectations, Dan Quinn could be a head coach elsewhere. Amari Cooper's gone. Gregory, not a great offseason, weird draft. What is the vibe like at camp?
It's funny that you bring up what happened at the end of that season, because in the very first practice today, situational football, racing up to the line of scrimmage, setting the ball down, giving it to the official, like that was all what was happening. So I think you're correct to say that all of that stuff is coloring this camp. Now, if they want to start issuing apologies for everything Jerry said over the years, they're going to be busy. Okay. I mean, and what he said, it's not, it's not great, but I don't think, we're all going to be able to move on with our lives. But Jerry does that on a pretty normal basis. I think we're getting mixed messages already from the Cowboys, like early on in camp. What really stood out to me is Jerry can't decide what happened last year. On one hand, he wants to be celebrated for 12 wins. I mean, he really does. And he wants to say to people, y'all wanted me to fire this guy? Y'all wanted me to fire a guy who had 12 wins? Now, we've talked enough on the volume and in other places to know that a lot of that was fool's gold. A lot of that was playing a horrible division, getting fat, those numbers even. I mean, Werder, who I do the Doomsday podcast with, he's trying to get me to go to some fancy restaurant tonight. I don't have his kind of expense account, so I can't join him at those kind of places. But he's really hitting these numbers hard. Last year, the amount of points they put up, the takeaways, how it all adds up. Is there any way they could equal that? Well, it really doesn't matter, because last year, even though they put up great numbers, it was a typical Cowboys performance once they got to the playoffs. So all that to say is Jerry is having a lot of trouble, Colin, deciding what happened last year. He knows he left the head coach hanging out in the wind while Dan Quinn interviewed with other people. So in some sense, he turned the heat up on him. But the other day, when asked, Jerry, why do you think anything will be different? Why does anything be? He pointed at McCarthy and said because of him. I mean, do we think McCarthy's done something different? Did he go back to the analytics barn? I mean, I don't know what he could have done that would give Jerry all this, but Jerry has to be selling something at all times. And the most honest moment for Jerry the other day was to say that I have a curse that I only deal with the successes. And listen, what he remembers are the gushers, all the oil wells he hit, all the natural gas that he's hit. And he's able to move on and forget about those things. Jerry is like a great cornerback. He's got the shortest memory ever.
I said this today on TV, and it'll take me a little bit to unpack this, that for years and years, the NFC was better than the AFC. It was just stronger. And then the AFC teams that had either average quarterbacks or aging quarterbacks hit on their draft picks. Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor to Josh Allen. Andy Dalton to Joe Burrow. Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert. Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. The AFC, they hit some home runs with quarterbacks. Now, good luck getting out of that conference. The NFC is different. They've still got older quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Stafford's an older quarterback. But the bottom of the NFC is much weaker than the bottom of the AFC. The NFC East is weak. A lot of teams don't have the quarterback, and the good ones are getting older. And my point is, there's about a 2-year window here. My guess is the Giants may get a C.J. Stroud. Do the bottom teams in the NFC, the Seahawks, the Falcons look like they're tanking? Do they get a Bryce Young? And that right now is the time, Matt. You don't have an Allen. You don't have a Herbert, a Burrow, a Mahomes. There's not this gauntlet of like the next superstar quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, he's now over in the AFC. That we got a 2-year window here for Dallas. Quarterbacks are getting old, and there's a really fairly large bottom in this conference. And I do feel like it puts a little pressure on the Cowboys, who have a top 12 quarterback, to win now. I really do.
Yeah, that's very interesting. In thinking of all those quarterbacks and the age of the quarterbacks in the NFC. I'll tell you, my trained eye today, Dak. Last year he got hurt, as you said, early in camp. They've been some talk about, he's going to move so much better. Even just today in the team drills, nimble, extremely nimble. And so there was a lot of movement with him. I think you make a good point. I think the Cowboys' issue is like a lot of Cowboys teams, it's all based on sort of hope. Gallup, can he get back from rehab and be a true number 2? Can CD Lamb be a true number 1? Who is the third receiver? There's this Tolbert that comes from South Alabama. We talked to him today. Very impressive. Saw him make some catches today. But think about this, the running game. It's all based on, can Zeke, the Cowboys are so bad about this. They don't want you to go back to like the 2020 version of people or the 2021. They want people to go back to like 2016 and 2017. And that's one of the things they do with Zeke. And this is an issue. And I think I'm stumbled onto something here. When your leaders aren't great players, you might have some problems. Zeke, for better or worse, is an enormous leader on this team. He can't really get through seasons. He's not as productive as he is. Yet he spoke today. He was the first player up there. Guess who's attending the quarterback meetings? Zeke is going to them. I think that's a problem. And I think it's been a problem with the Cowboys for a while now. But I think they want Zeke. Zeke has emerged, and to his credit, maybe it's an indictment of some of the other players on this team. But other than Dak, Zeke is the greatest leader on the team. And he's not that great. And I think when your leaders aren't that good, that could be part of the issue. But I think you give this thing, once they get in pads, Colin, it depends on how many practices I get to see. I could really start pumping some sunshine into this team. But through one practice, I'm nonplussed.
I said today I introduced a new character on the show. It was glass half full Colin. And I said, with the Cowboys, Green Bay does not have a number 1 receiver. Rams could have a Super Bowl hangover. Kyler Murray in Arizona, a lot of noise. Philadelphia, we saw them in a playoff game, non-competitive. 49ers, introducing a new quarterback. A lot of the teams, in their way, it's Tom Brady's last season. AB, Gronk gone. They lost an interior offensive lineman. Todd Bowles, they had a coaching change. Glass half full Colin, a lot of their obstacles have big questions. Do they not?
Does glass half full Colin always wear a T-shirt when he? I really wish I had done that. I wish I could have been there to match up with you. I like the thought, and I think there is but I also know the Colin that the other day I was listening to, and no one memorizes schedules like you. I don't know if it's like one of the great gifts in life that you have, but you do love sort of having a bunch of knowledge of schedules. And I thought you made a good point on the possibility of a Dallas 0-2. So if you want to go glass half empty, that was the direction you were going that day. And there's another head coach on this team. There was one years ago when Garrett it was like a head coach of the offense and a head coach of the defense was Wade Phillips. We have a situation like that here, okay, with Dan Quinn. And I think Werder and I are getting an exclusive with Dan Quinn tomorrow night, so that'll be exciting. But that's something to watch. But I like the glass half full, Colin, in the thought that the other thing you do is you like interior linemen in the league, and so I like the fact that you become obsessed with things like that. But I think there's something. I think there's something to it. I find it funny this time of year that we let ourselves literally start to believe Jalen Hurts could be the guy. You know, he could be pretty good. Obviously, there's not much you can believe in with the Giants, but the Cowboys, they have the pieces. They really do. Now, you as a connoisseur of offensive lines, that's going to be interesting because they're without starting right tackle. They got a rookie coming in trying to win the left guard position. They got a banged up left tackle, and they got a center who's kind of, not well known, and they got a Hall of Fame right guard. Now they got two Hall of Famers. One of them can't stay healthy. So a lot of this, but again, you won 12 games last year and you weren't that great. You just, on defense, think about this. This is like one of the great scoring defenses we've seen in the past 20 years, what they had last year. Everybody was taking it to the house. Diggs, Dorrance Armstrong. It was a scoop and score team. Now, that's hard to replicate. The analytics on that would say that's not going to happen next year.
That's right. You know, that is a really good point, is they were the scoop and score team in the league. It's almost like fumble recoveries, like they don't add up. Like this would surprise people, but if you won several games in the last possession, you would credit your coach and your quarterback. Generally, if you do it one year, you don't do it the other. So Dallas got some convenient bounces, guys in the right place. I still think it still feels the NFC's bottom is really kind of sizable. I think they're a 10-win team. I don't know if they get into the playoffs, but God, the Giants are hot garbage, and I don't trust the ownership and the executive suite in Washington. Jalen Hurts is productive, but I feel limited. I go back to what I really believe. I think the next 2 years are big. I think they're really big for Dallas. And Jerry's, to me, always been a little quick to give out player contracts and a little late to get rid of coaches. Do you think there's any chance he would bail on McCarthy if they were 4-6 through 10?
He's only done it once, and they quit on Wade Phillips, and so they were like 1-7, and he dumped him, and Garrett kind of rallied. The interesting part is I don't even know if he would totally let it get to 4-6. If he were going to make a move, again, this is a tricky one. This is awkward for McCarthy because Quinn, I was even watching it today. The players, the way they respond to him, that's a guy that surprised me. I didn't really know that about him in Atlanta. Obviously, they made it to the Super Bowl. I remember him being a great defensive coordinator in Seattle, so you would have more familiarity with him. What I didn't understand about Quinn is the impact he would have on the players. And this defense, it's kind of like going back to those Wade Phillips days. They don't report to McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy's just kind of like a figurehead. Like he sits up there and does the news conferences, but Quinn kind of runs everything. So I do think if there was going to be a change made, it would be to save the season. And I don't know if 4-6, if you totally save the season. The only change that would be made is like a 2-4. And then there might be some thought with it. Maybe that, but I don't. Jerry hates doing it. He hates it. And Jerry still talks about how much he regrets firing Chan Gailey. That was 1999. And Chan Gailey went to the playoffs in back-to-back years. And after one of those trips, I think it was a 10-6 season, he fired Gailey. Jerry will tell you it's one of his biggest regrets. Now, we watched Gailey's career. I don't think Jerry should have like enormous regrets, but anyway, Jerry is a trip because you know him, and I've known him for years. everybody kind of thinks all this embarrassing news off the off season like would trip him up or make him embarrassed. He's like supercharged by that stuff. Like it doesn't bother him. Like he literally somehow he feeds off of it. So he truly is one of those weird people joke about like any publicity is good publicity. He really actually believes it. And some of that stuff out there about him is just downright embarrassing. But you saw him the other day and he just doesn't care. I mean, he is Tom Wolfe wrote a book years ago that I liked. And it wasn't one of his most well-known books, but it was called A Man in Full. And it was a huge business guy late in his life. And he was actually a huge college football fan. He played at Georgia. This character had played at Georgia Tech. And that describes Jerry, who played college football at Arkansas. He is a man in full, and there is no way to dampen his spirits. And so he's about to turn 80. So there's always some sense of urgency, but I do think there's a little more right now because of this. I think this turning 80 is playing a trick on him a little bit.
Well, as you said, he's the eternal optimist. I think most great business people that I've met, it could be Dana White, it could be Steve Jobs, who I didn't know, but I've read books about Walter Isaacson's book, I think it was. They have short memories. Like, you can't obsess over losses. Years ago, I covered a college football coach. It was Oregon, Mike Bellotti, and they had a really good team, the Joey Harrington team. And they lost a wild shootout to Stanford. And they were the best team in the Pac-12 that year. And Bellotti had one of the great quotes ever. He said, listen, we can't let Stanford beat us twice. And they came out and they won the rest of their games. And I've used that through the years on my show, in any business I've been in, is that you just got to get over stuff fast. And I think, by the way, Jerry does. I think Dak does. Jerry's a unique figure. You think I watched the movie the other night. It's one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite Westerns ever. It's called Hell or High Water.
Yeah.
With Jeff Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
He's brilliant. And I thought of Jerry Jones watching it, just the language of West Texas. And, there's this cop. These cops are chasing these brother bank robbers. And, there's this sort of feeling about West Texas or Texas people. You say what you think. You get it off your chest. And whether it offends or not, people get over it really quickly. And that's the one thing I'll say about Jerry. He doesn't appear to hold grudges with the media. I mean, do you ever feel he's held grudges with you or Ed when you've been opinionated?
He's been very angry at both of us, but he gets past it. He gets past it quickly, and he kind of lets the PR people hold long grudges. Yeah, but
That's funny.